Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom have been quite a hot topic within the Zelda fanbase. Some fans say that these games deviate from the classic formula that made the series great in the first place, whereas others argue that these open-air games are among the best, if not the best, in the entire franchise. And while I love these games, I do fall into the former group of people. Their step away from the elements that made a Zelda game up until now have left a bitter taste in my mouth, wishing that old Zelda would come back. But after a long 8 years, Nintendo gave us just what the Zelda series needed. Just over a year and a half after Tears of the Kingdom's release, Nintendo gave us Echoes of Wisdom, another brand new Zelda game. Teamed up with Grezzo, the company responsible for the remake of Link's Awakening, they made the first official Zelda game where we play as Zelda. I love this game. It jumped up to and has consistently stayed at my 5th favorite Zelda game in the entire series and hasn't even been out for a year. I find myself continuously coming back to it even after beating it multiple times, and I believe that everyone should play it whether they miss old Zelda or became a fan because of the open-air games. I'm Mr. Z, and this is Zeldiscussions. Echoes of Wisdom has a great story that develops as we, the players, progress through the game. We haven't had this in years. Breath of the Wild introduced the concept of the game's story taking place in the past, experienced through collecting memories with the ability to obtain said memories in any order that the player chooses. And this can allow the player to spoil the game early on or completely bypass experiencing the story in the first place. But Echoes of Wisdom brought back the classic form of storytelling that we've been missing for 8 years, as well as building upon the established lore instead of disregarding it entirely. If you haven't played the game, spoiler warning now and you can skip to the end of this section. But for those who have played the game or simply don't care about spoilers, here's a basic rundown. In the introduction, we are immediately thrust into the action of the game. We play as Link fighting our way through a dungeon, and at the end of it, we see that Zelda has been captured by Ganon, and that Link has come to her rescue. This is a very unique beginning, as these are usually the events that take place at the end of most Zelda games. But after defeating Ganon, however, a strange rift opens up, swallowing Link. Link saves Zelda from her crystal prison by firing an arrow before he's taken completely. The rift suddenly expands rapidly in pursuit of Zelda. After narrowly escaping and being discovered by 2 royal guards, Zelda then heads back to Hyrule Castle. At this point in the game, we don't know anything about what's going on behind the scenes. We only know that Ganon seems to be in charge of all of this and that the rifts have been taking people for as long as anyone can remember, informed to us by the King of Hyrule. However, after talking to the King of Hyrule and learning a bit about what's been happening, a rift opens up in the throne room, taking the king and his associates, only then to be replaced with doppelgangers who order for Zelda's execution. Confused, Zelda is taken to the castle dungeon to be held before she's executed. This is where we meet Tri, our companion, who gives Zelda the Tri-Rod and teaches her how to use it. The Tri-Rod allows Zelda to learn and cast echoes, which are objects found in the world as well as slain monsters. And this mechanic is central to the game as a whole. But after breaking out of the castle with this new ability with Impa's assistance, Zelda makes her way to the Suthorn region to find Impa's brother. But Impa's brother's house has been consumed by the rift from Ganon, so we return to the ruins where the game started, also consumed by that rift. Tri informs us that if Zelda can save Tri's friends from within the rift, it will be repaired. Tri then allows Zelda to enter. After entering the rift, we are introduced to the Still World, the realm inside the rifts. In this world, chunks of Hyrule consumed by the rifts are scattered about. However, everything inside is decaying into nothing. People taken by the rifts are petrified, decaying slowly, and if left alone, will vanish completely, never to be seen again. Zelda can walk about within the rifts due to what Tri says is her being special, likely because of her having the blood of the goddess Hylia. But this prevents her from being turned to stone to decay into nothing like normal people would. And halfway through exploring Suthorn Ruins, we fight Dark Link, an imposter of Link created by the Still World. After obtaining the dungeon item, the Sword of Might, from him, we head to the boss, Seismic Talus. This monster has captured Tri's friends, but after saving them, the rift is repaired with their help. With the rift repaired, one of the king's associates, Minister Left, now saved from the rift, finds Zelda and shows her the way to Impa's brother's house. Here, we learn that Link and Impa's brother, Luberry, were friends, and that Luberry actually crafted the Sword of Might for Link for the purpose of destroying Ganon, and allows Zelda to upgrade the sword later. But Zelda then has two more large rifts to go to, one in Gerudo Desert and the other in Jabul Waters. After completing them and resolving the issues with the Zoras and the Gerudo, Zelda then goes to Hyrule Castle, with both Minister Left and the newly saved General Right to show the people that the king is an imposter. But upon returning to Hyrule Castle, the rift in the throne room has expanded, taking the castle and castle town with it. Zelda enters the rift to confront the evil within. The boss of this dungeon is Ganon. However, Tri realizes that this isn't the true Ganon. This Ganon has been created using the power that creates echoes. This Ganon is an echo, a pawn in the greater plan of some unknown evil. This is a crazy plot twist that can only be experienced when the developers wanted us to experience it. A twist that would not and could not have had the same effect had it been in the open air style. But the game then has 3 more dungeons to complete, each in Eldin, Faron, and Lanayru. But once you complete the second, however, you are informed by the corresponding golden goddess who this evil being is. Null, a dark god that seeks to return the world to void, one who the goddess is imprisoned within the planet itself. This takes the established lore of the creation of Hyrule and adds a reason behind it. The golden goddess has created the world to imprison Null. From that point onward, your goal is to defeat this being of nothing to save Hyrule. An overall amazing story that keeps us guessing what will happen next, only to completely turn our understanding on its head time and time again. This gives me hope for future Zelda games. Hopefully the next open-air Zelda will have a progressing story that develops with the player's experience rather than through memory recollection. But not only does this game have a great story, its progression is great as well. You have to do the Suthorn Ruins dungeon first, but afterwards you are given the choice between Gerudo Desert and Jabul Waters for your next destination. This gives us freedom within the parameters that the developers set for us. After both dungeons are completed, you then have to go to Hyrule Castle. After that, you are then given the 3 choices to your next temples, Eldin, Faron, and Lanayru. This is a great concept because it lets us play some dungeons in the order that we want, but also keeps the story linear by bringing all the completed choices to one place that you have to go to next. I really like being able to choose where I go and then having to go to one place next. It makes each section of the game feel like I'm progressing through it, rather than just choosing every dungeon I do in whatever order I choose before the game is completed. This is a very welcome return from old Zelda's linearity with a nice blend of open-air freedom, in my opinion. Now, I've heard criticisms from people online saying that we're only playing as Zelda because Link is made to fit the role of damsel in distress. But that's just not true. Link is the tough, courageous monster killer that we all know and love, and Noel knows this as well. He's cunning. He takes Link to the Still World in order to prevent Link from interfering with his plans. But even when he's in the Still World, Link is special too, and is still doing his own thing even while in the Still World, slaying monsters and trying to save Zelda even without his gear, like the selfless, courageous hero that he is. But with Link in the Still World away from Hyrule, Zelda has to be the one to step up. But Zelda is not the tough, courageous monster killer. She is the embodiment of the Triforce of Wisdom. She isn't meant to be in the heat of battle constantly, and they didn't make her that kind of character. She has to strategize and use her wisdom along with her echoes properly in order to save her kingdom. And that has made for such a great story that works with the established lore and character roles. It's not a simple gender role swap for the sake of playing as a female, but a different perspective on the story taking place from Zelda's point of view rather than Link's. This game's return to roots has given me, at least, a breath of fresh air from the open-air formula. As previously stated, the game features the echo mechanic that allows the player to learn various objects and slay monsters found throughout the overworld. These can be used in overworld traversal and combat. Spawning a monster is the main method used to defeat other monsters. If a moblin stands in your way, you can use a Poe to take it down. At first, I was quite nervous about the game's more passive combat system shown off in the June Nintendo Direct of 2024. It seemed like simply spawning a moblin to take down some enemies or throwing a rock at an enemy enough times to give it fatal head trauma would get quite boring fairly quickly. But I was pleasantly surprised with the sheer amount of depth this simple concept brings to the table. At the beginning of the game, the player will likely only have about 7 echoes, 3 of which are usable in combat: the crate, the Hyrule Castle pot, and the rock. And these aren't really that powerful, with the former 2 breaking upon throwing them. But when you're let loose on the overworld, you're met by a Zol, one of the weakest monsters in the game, so one of these echoes will take it down easily. You can then learn and use the Zol to attack and kill a Keese. Keese are stronger than Zols and deal more damage, so you may need to summon a few Zols. But having a Keese on your side is quite handy. They can fly, allowing for aerial striking, and by having a Keese, you can use one to attack another enemy that may take more hits to defeat, like a rope. This adds depth to the combat. It develops as you play the game and obtain more and more echoes, making you, the player, stronger with each battle. And there are a lot of echoes to collect, a variety of which are quite useful but completely optional. Echoes like the Lynel, the level 3 Darknut, and the level 3 Lizalfos are all in completely out-of-the-way locations, but by finding and defeating them, it rewards the player with an ally that can one-hit pretty much anything. Tri gives you the Tri-Rod, but she's also the source of its power. The triangles following her are what limit the player from casting an infinite number of echoes. You start with a measly 3 triangles, which is perfectly fine when all the echoes you have available to you only cost 1. But if you learn a P-Hat early on, however, P-Hats cost 3 triangles. This prevents you from casting any more echoes while a P-Hat is spawned, as well as forces you to strategize which echoes to use, how many to use, and what scenarios you use them in. The Bed Echo allows you to heal when you lay down in it, but if a P-Hat is spawned, then casting a bed leaves you vulnerable as the P-Hat will no longer be out to attack. You need to keep track of your already cast echoes if you want to heal during battle. If you need a stronger ally like the P-Hat, then you may need to hold off on your healing, or try your luck with a monster that takes less power to summon. But you are not limited to only 3 triangles for the entire game, however. As you progress through the story, completing dungeons and or side quest related rifts, Tri's power increases level by level, either rewarding you with an additional triangle, or reducing the number required for summoning certain echoes per level up. But the combat deepens yet. In the middle of the first dungeon, Soothorn Ruins, after fighting against Darklink, you are rewarded with the Sword of Might, the dungeon's main item. This allows you to attack enemies head-on yourself without needing to cast echoes. But it comes at a price. The sword runs on your magic meter that can only be replenished with energy collected from the Still World, Rift monsters, or from the game's potions. This forces you to strategize when, how often, and how long you use your sword. This gives you so many options with each monster encounter. Do you use your sword exclusively? Perhaps you want to fight alongside a Darknut. Or are you more conservative with your magic and want to only use a Lizalfos? It's completely up to you how to tackle any monster problem, and I absolutely adore this game for that. Also, if you don't feel like fighting an enemy in the moment, you can use the water block echo to literally drown that enemy. So not only are your monster echoes and sword options, but you can also defeat minor enemies in a flash with the water block. Tri's ability Bind is also useful in combat. This ability allows Zelda to grab enemies and objects and move them around, or attach herself to them and copy the movement of the object. So this in combination with the water block is a viable option, but you can also literally grab an enemy and chuck them off a cliff if you want to. This, along with all other methods of attack, make each fight unique and fun. As well as giving the player more options in combat, it also balances your power. If you could use the sword infinitely, then there would be absolutely no point in using your echoes at all. So, it incentivizes the player to use their echoes for combat as well as attack directly. But you can upgrade your sword with the game's collectibles, Might Crystals, awarded from side quests to push the limits that balance your power if you want to. These upgrades, which I will discuss more in depth later, are great because they reward you for doing side quests by expanding the depth of the already interesting combat, either by upgrading your damage output or the size of your magic meter, extending your sword use time. And to me, this is such a great feeling. Zelda games in the past few years have had combat that I feel is quite repetitive and boring, not to mention their lack of side quests that expand upon it. The open-air Zeldas struggle with non-rewarding combat that really only gifts the player with yet another weapon that'll break in 5 minutes. Echoes of Wisdom's combat actually feels rewarding, however, because if I do encounter a monster, I don't feel the urge to completely avoid non-required monster encounters because of the fear of losing one of my weapons. If I defeat a new enemy, I get to add it to my arsenal permanently, and make it fight for me as many times as I want or need, instead of gaining another temporary weapon that only serves to extend the time that it takes for me to run out of attacks. Also, with the peace of mind of knowing that my echoes can be used as much as I need, I actually will go out of my way to fight monsters instead of avoiding conflict as much as I can. I feel this combat system is one of the most unique and interesting that we've seen in the series to date, and I hope we can see more like it in future games. That's all for part 1. If you enjoyed it, consider leaving a like and subscribe if you want to. Part 2 is linked in the description and on screen right now if you want to go check that out. Thank you guys for watching until the end. You're all appreciated. I'll catch you in the next one.